Ethan Blake's voice sliced through the noise like a buzzsaw on concrete, snapping the room into a stunned silence. The makeshift meeting room on the construction site was filled with engineers, supervisors, and laborers, but right now all eyes were on one man, the one Ethan had just humiliated. Malik Carter stood there in dusty overalls, a pencil behind one ear, his calloused hands gripping a rolled-up blueprint. He was 42, with decades of experience building everything from schools to skyscrapers. And yet, to Ethan, he was just a bricklayer, a replaceable cog. "We don't pay bricklayers to think," Ethan sneered, waving his tablet in the air. "Just follow instructions." Malik felt the flush rise in his neck, but he didn't flinch. "With all due respect, sir," he said calmly, "the slope on the northeast side will cause pressure to build against the foundation. If the soil shifts, we're looking at a potential collapse. Your calculations don't take into account—" "Calculations?" Ethan interrupted, bursting into a smug laugh. "Everyone listen up. Apparently the guy who mixes cement is now an expert in structural engineering. Maybe we should just give him a diploma and call it a day." The room rippled with awkward laughter. Some engineers smiled, others looked down at their feet. No one defended Malik. But Malik didn't break eye contact. He stood still, breathing slowly, his jaw clenched. This wasn't the first time someone tried to silence him, but this was something else. It wasn't just a dismissal. It was a public gut punch, a quiet reminder of how easily experience could be erased by arrogance and a polished suit. Ethan, the new chief engineer at Stonebridge Developments, was all designer arrogance. Sharp blazer, Italian shoes, and a Stanford degree he never stopped mentioning. He walked like he owned the site. Malik walked like he built it. "If you want to keep your job," Ethan said, stepping closer, "you'll stick to laying bricks and leave the decisions to people who actually know what they're doing." Silence. Some heads turned. A few workers shifted awkwardly. But no one noticed the glint in Malik's eyes. It wasn't the defeated look of a man shamed. It was the knowing calm of someone watching a predator walk straight into a trap. Malik nodded once. "Understood, sir," he said evenly. "Just thought you should know." Ethan smiled, thinking he had won. But Malik was already slipping his old phone from his pocket and typing a message, fingers steady as stone. What happened next would shake the very ground Ethan stood on, not because Malik was wrong, but because he had no idea who he had just tried to silence. The meeting ended with forced smiles and Ethan's booming voice carrying over everyone else's. Most of the team filed out quickly, eager to escape the tension, some pretending to check their notes while others murmured behind closed doors. But Malik remained composed, slipping quietly away from the crowd, his message already sent. Inside the administrative trailer, Ethan was pacing. His assistant handed him a coffee he didn't ask for, which he barely touched. Then a chime, sharp and sudden, sounded from his phone. He glanced at it, expecting a reminder or email, but his face changed. "Emergency meeting. 15 minutes. With the owner," he muttered. The air seemed to freeze. Every engineer in the room turned toward him. "Mr. Carter is personally coming to assess the project," Ethan announced stiffly. The name struck a chord. Malik Carter. But they all assumed it meant some mysterious executive who rarely left boardrooms. To them it was just a name, a title, not a man with dusty boots and a quiet voice who they had just seen insulted. Ethan's nervousness bubbled over. He began barking orders. "Get this place spotless. I want every blueprint on display, all tablets fully charged, no mistakes." No one questioned him. Meanwhile, at the far end of the site, Malik approached his old car. It was parked away from the executive section, a modest sedan with a cracked windshield and fading paint. From the trunk, he pulled out a fresh ironed dress shirt. He buttoned it slowly, unhurried, then reached in for a polished leather briefcase and a pair of thin-rimmed glasses. His transformation was quiet but powerful. Inside the trailer, Ethan was spiraling, fixing his tie, adjusting his hair in the reflection of his phone, trying to act composed while running through mental damage control. He had no idea the man he had just mocked was about to walk in, not as a worker, but as the owner of everything around him. A sleek black Mercedes rolled through the site's gates like a shadow cutting across the sunlit dust. Workers turned, their heads. Managers straightened their spines. Ethan was already at the door, grinning like a talk show host. He stepped forward confidently. "Mr. Carter, what an honor. We are right on schedule, and I've personally overseen every critical element." The driver got out first. Then, from the rear door, came a man in a tailored charcoal suit. He looked around calmly, his face serious, seasoned, and unreadable. Ethan took a step back, confused. "I'm sorry. We're expecting Mr. Malik Carter." The man extended a firm handshake. "Malik Carter, owner of Stonebridge Developments." The world stopped moving. Someone coughed. Someone else dropped a clipboard. And Ethan blinked, mouth slightly open. The words stuck like cement in his throat. "But you're—" "Yes," Malik said, his voice as calm as before. "I'm also the bricklayer you humiliated this morning." The silence was louder than anything Ethan had ever heard. Faces that once mocked now turned pale. The engineers who smirked earlier suddenly avoided eye contact. Malik looked around. 15 years ago, I started this company with nothing but a toolbox and a promise that no voice would be dismissed because of a title or skin color. That's why, on major builds, I show up in boots, not a suit. I watch. I learn. And I remember. Samuel Brooks, the senior site manager, stepped forward. "Sir, you could have told me." Malik finally smiled. "And ruin the surprise, Sam?" Laughter rippled, real this time, full of respect. Ethan, still in disbelief, took a half step forward. "Mr. Carter, if I'd known—" "That's the point," Malik interrupted. "You didn't know. And so, you chose disrespect." The lesson hung in the air like dust in sunlight, visible, undeniable, unforgettable. Inside the main trailer, the mood was surgical. Malik stood at the head of the room, now fully in executive form, but no less grounded. Beside him stood Samuel and two company auditors with files and tablets in hand. "Let's begin," Malik said. "Why were my concerns clearly stated? This morning, not only ignored but ridiculed?" Ethan tried to steady his breath. "It was a misunderstanding. I was merely enforcing hierarchy." "Our handbook," Malik cut in, "states clearly, any employee, regardless of position, has the duty to report safety risks. There's no clause exempting bricklayers." He tapped the tablet. A speaker, in the corner, crackled. Ethan's voice from earlier boomed. "Here we work with calculations, not with the eye of a bricklayer who doesn't even know how to hold a tape measure." Ethan's tie seemed to strangle him. Sweat formed on his brow. An auditor stood. "Mr. Blake made 17 engineering decisions without sign-off. Of those, 12 pose structural risks, most notably in the Northeast Foundation. We also uncovered falsified test reports and unauthorized material substitutions." Another engineer stood up, his voice shaking. "We raised our concerns, sir, but Ethan said the numbers were solid. He wanted to cut costs to qualify for the end of year. Bonuses." Malik nodded slowly. "So safety was exchanged for personal gain." Ethan stood, desperate. "This is a witch hunt. I'm a respected engineer, a Stanford graduate. I won't be disrespected by bricklayers," Malik said, calmly crossing his arms. The room froze. Ethan sank into his chair. Malik motioned to Samuel, who handed him a folder. "This is your termination letter," Malik said. "But I'm giving you two options." He placed the folder on the table. Option 1, immediate termination for cause, with legal proceedings. Your license will be revoked. Ethan's face drained of color. Option 2, voluntary resignation. You return your bonus. Then, 6 months of unpaid teaching in our training program for disadvantaged youth. 5 minutes to decide. Malik turned to the others. Gather everyone in the courtyard. They deserve to know what kind of leadership we stand for. The workers gathered quickly. Whispers filled the air. Some had heard rumors. Others saw it unfolding with wide eyes. Malik stepped onto a low platform and raised his voice. Good afternoon. For those who don't know, I'm Malik Carter. Some of you know me better as Malik, the new guy with the shovel. Same man. A ripple of smiles. I'm here for 2 reasons. First, to inform you that Ethan Blake is no longer part of this company. There was a stunned silence, followed by cautious clapping, then louder applause. Malik raised a hand. Second, and more importantly, is this. At Stonebridge, we build more than structures. We build culture, and that culture starts with mutual respect. Whether you hold a PhD or earned your skills on the street, your voice matters. Your insight matters. The trailer door opened. Ethan emerged, his boxes in hand. His steps were slow. The crowd parted, creating a corridor. But this wasn't ridicule. It was something heavier. Pity. His gaze met Malik's one last time. No apology, but perhaps for the first time, understanding. 6 months passed. The tower Malik warned about now soared into the skyline, foundation reinforced, every flaw corrected. Inside the executive conference room on the top floor, Samuel gave his report. Our open voice policy increased early error detection by 78%. Since we allowed everyone to report risks, we've avoided 2 major incidents. Malik nodded. And the volunteer program? He asked. Samuel smiled, pulling up a photo. A group of teens, most from underfunded neighborhoods, stood proudly beside scaffolding. In the photo's corner, teaching them, was a leaner, rougher-looking Ethan Blake. Beard grown, suit replaced with rolled-up sleeves and steel-toe boots. He's exceeded expectations, Samuel said. Malik looked out over the city. Redemption wasn't a myth. It was bricks and sweat and humility. Later that afternoon, Malik visited the training center. Ethan was there, drawing on a whiteboard, explaining load distribution to students who hung on his every word. Their eyes met. No hatred, just something deeper. Later, in the parking lot, Ethan loaded materials into a used pickup. No luxury car. Just tools and grit. Mr. Carter, he said, I used to think this was punishment. And now? Malik asked. They're brilliant, Ethan said, nodding toward the building. They ask questions I never even considered. They see things differently, and they trust me. That part, I didn't expect. Malik smiled. It was never punishment, Ethan. It was transformation. Ethan nodded slowly. I want to stay. As a volunteer. Another semester if you'll let me. Malik didn't even hesitate. Approved. As he returned to his office, Malik passed the new lobby plaque, freshly installed in gold letters. We build with materials, but we build respect with humility. Ethan had built high before, but now he was building something stronger, himself. And Malik. Malik had built more than a company. He had built a culture where wisdom wears work boots, and dignity doesn't need a title.